we hit you with our favorite and least favorite examples of a topic in 3 categories. Those categories are film and TV, books and comics, and video games and board games. Tonight we are breaking down vampires, the sometimes apex predators of the night and other times foppish, comedic, sparkling douche-tards. Whether they are unstoppable demonic beasts or turned away with 2 chair legs held together like a cross, we're going to delve down the rabbit hole and see where we fall on our examples. Now, none of us have shared the choices with each other, at least I haven't, so let's see how we favor these bloodsuckers one way or the other. With me tonight are the guys from Geekvice. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Go for it, Morph.
Hi, I'm Morph from Geekvice.
Hi, I'm Kip from... Where am I from? Mars. No, Geekvice.
And I'm Bill. I'm one of the owners of Prolific Games. I've done their podcast a couple times. Threw this out there. Anyone wanna try another podcast? They foolishly joined up. Sometimes we may be joined by my partner John. He couldn't make it tonight, but tonight we decided to start with those vampires. So guys, what do you classify a vampire?
Something that is blood-sucking, immortal, and does not sparkle.
You know what? I'm gonna agree with that. This a vampire is to me it's the stuff that horror stories started with. Vampires are these creatures that look like humans if you run across them. They can't spend a lot of time in the daylight. But superhuman strength, this insatiable thirst to drink blood, and which causes them to murder and pillage and kill. And they don't fall in love with humans.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add in there. I actually didn't go with any of these, but there are a couple books that I've read and stuff where they're like psychic vampires. Like instead of blood, they steal off like energy from people and stuff. So I'll throw that out there just because.
Sure.
They fall into that same like I'm a predator. I'm just using you as food and stuff. But again, they can't be those sparkly little bastards that walk around and get tan.
Yeah.
If they're dull-eyed, they're not vampires.
Right. So I figured we'd start with our first topic. We'd start with the books and comics. Now we kind of laid it out as written media, some sort of game, either video or board games, and then visual media, so films, TV, and what have you. I also figured when I was doing this, it could be something that contains a vampire, and you just like that vampire in that story. It could be something totally about a vampire, but whatever it is, it has to pertain to that. So, who wants to go first with their favorite book or comic vampire?
I will go first.
Okay.
And mine is a comic. It's called American Vampire. And I specifically called out Volume 1. The authors are Scott Snyder and Stephen King. Big Stephen King fan, that's why I picked it up in the first place. The illustrator is Raphael Albuquerque. And it takes place in 2 time periods. One is 1920s, and that's what's written by Scott Snyder. And the other one's a Western that's written by Stephen King. And the vampire in the whole thing, his name is Skinner Sweet. He carries a piece of candy in his hat, and he's just somebody you don't want to tangle with. He is a true menacing vampire that he knows he's better, stronger than everybody else, and he uses it to his advantage. So he is what nightmares are made of.
So is it the same guy in both timelines?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so you kind of get the idea that he's a very old vampire, and he's very, like I said, he doesn't sparkle, he doesn't fall in love with some teenage girl that's going to make his life hell. He's just a mean-ass vampire that kills people because he wants to.
Nice. You can't go out in the sun, right?
You know what? I think he did.
What?
Well, see, and that's been kind of a point that I think has been a little grayed over time.
Excuse me.
Because they kind of, it's kind of hard to tell a story or do a movie if they can't go out in daylight at all. You
Yeah.
know, so I think it's kind of so I think they've kind of stretched that a little bit to where they can spend some time in the daylight. It's not the instantaneous catch on fire, but
Yeah.
it's the, this is kind of painful type
But see, that's
on fire.
that's kind of one of the scarier things for me. Like, this thing can't be stopped. Your only chance is, look, you can go out in the sun and it can't.
Right.
So, but Morph, what was your favorite?
Well, I put in for, again, I'm a huge comic book guy, so I can't bring up anything like, the original Dracula novel or anything like that. But the one thing that I picked out was more of an actual villain than a book, and that is Morbius from Spider-Man. I love that character. I love the idea of it. This was a guy who could actually he flew through the air. He was a pain in Spider-Man's ass, but it was kind of the same thing. He couldn't come out during the daylight. He was only out at night. Spider-Man could never find him. I think at some point in the comics he actually got turned into a good guy and started actually doing good things, but he was always just kind of this off-kilter type character, and he was kind of fun to read about. The other character that I enjoyed, and this will come back later on, probably in the next topic, and that is Blade, another one of my comic book characters that I absolutely love. Vampire hunter, a daywalker, a half-breed vampire, so he can get out during the daylight, and he just has some really badass weapons and can fight really good. So it's
Turned by Morbius, right?
I believe, yes, in the comic books, that is, I believe, is the way he came about.
Yep. So it's funny that you mentioned it, because mine I actually went with, I have a literary English degree, and mine actually is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Nice.
I mean, the thing was written in like 1897. It's like the first book that kind of like took all the lore, all the like, these are things that we don't talk about, they're in the shadows, and brought it into the light. And in that book, you find out that Dracula's just a badass. Like, I mean, you see the vampires nowadays, and they have certain qualities, right? They'll take the super speed and strength, or they'll take the you can hypnotize someone, or hey, you can turn into something. And if you read the book, like Van Helsing at one point says like he's as strong as 20 men. So I mean, he's super strong there. He can fly. He can defy gravity. He doesn't really fly in that sense. He like can float and stuff.
Right.
He can climb up walls like a lizard. He can turn into a bat, a wolf. He can turn into fog and just disappear that way. He can actually control the weather. And so because he can do that, he's kind of out in like the dawn or evening, but he can kind of mist it over. So again, that sunlight isn't a huge problem. And then like he can shapeshift, so he can look different ages. Like, because throughout the book, at one point he looks super old, one point he looks really young. And the only way to finally kill him is to lop his head off and stake him in the heart. So, I mean, it takes full on hardcore. Like, you're not killing him easy. It's not, here, I got a cross, I'm going to hold you back. It's like, I got to push this through your chest and then lop your head off.
Here's some garlic bread. Stay away from me.
Right. Oh, some holy water. Splish, splish. We got to find him, and, like, a bunch of us have to get him down and, like, stake him. So it wasn't an easy feat, And in the book, I mean, he turns people into a vampire. So... and the other thing in the book, he just kind of, like, he'd be this gentlemanly thing, and then all of a sudden he'd just flip out into this rage of, like, oh, I'll kill you, and then, like, compose himself again, like, oh, okay. So he's not all together there, but I think he was kind of like the main thing, like, here's what a vampire is, and over the years they kind of went down,
Yeah.
How about our least favorite? This is what I'm interested to hear.
Well, the obvious choice is this book series called Twilight. Nobody could even talk about the worst vampires without mentioning them. And the funny thing is I worked at this one company, and all these people kept telling me, "You got to read Twilight. It's fantastic. You got to read it." And I kind of browsed it. I didn't really read it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the movie came out, and it's like, all right, I'll watch the freaking movie. Got it on DVD from the library, and was watching it. And I was live tweeting it while I was doing it. And I'm like, all right, 20 minutes in, nothing's happened. And somebody wrote me, goes, wait till the baseball scene. It's like, all right, what the hell's this baseball? And when it got to the baseball scene, I was so disenfranchised that I just shut it off, didn't finish. So I imagine the book's got to be worse. So I'm going to just say it. It's all three of my categories, Twilight, worst.
Nice. All three of them?
All three of them, because there is a game.
Oh, jeez.
No way, really?
There.
Oh, hell yeah.
Are you talking
Go
the
to a thrift store, and they're littered with them.
Oh man, that's awful.
How about you, Morph?
Oh, I don't have nearly as many bad things to say about vampires in books. I'm gonna have to agree with Kip and that Twilight is bad, and my wife has read them, and she walked me through all of it, and I just laughed at her. So, yeah, that one's bad. There's also, I kind of went with a more recent one, and this is a book that I actually own, and it's a Marvel one-shot called X-Men Smoke and Blood, and this is vampires basically attacking mutants, and mutants getting infected by this vampire, I don't know, I'll call it vampire curse. So mutants then turn into vampires and start attacking people. It was not a good book. The art was really bad on it, which I guess probably didn't help it. But I was not a fan of this book.
Okay. So a couple things. First, I did not put Twilight for anything in this. The reason is, and I'm gonna explain this. So my wife was a huge Twilight fan. Her and her friends would go see every movie. They went to my wife has not gone to a midnight showing, and she used to give me crap when I'd go to midnight showings. And then her and her friends went to these midnight showings, and she was like, I can't give you crap about that anymore. And I was like, hey, it's a good thing, whatever, right? But they were at dance, like my daughters have dance, right? And then all the moms are there, and Alexis, my oldest, comes walking up, and this is a couple years ago now. And they're like, oh my God, did you see the new Twilight? And she gets this deadpan look on her face that only a teenager can do, looks at them and goes, you stake them, you don't date them. And all of them were like, oh my goodness, what? You know, like, you don't know. And then probably earlier this year, one of her friends was trying to convince her about the stuff, and she came home and she goes, Dad, I figured it out. They're not vampires. And I was like, what? She goes, look, they hang around in the woods, they play games, they fall in love with people, and they sparkle in the sunlight. They're fairies. I'm like, fair enough. They aren't vampires. They're fairies. They don't drink blood. They play in the woods. You're right.
Yep.
So I can't even call him a vampire.
Fair enough.
Now, I will actually argue your point with you in just this one sense.
There's always one in every group.
When you reached out to me and gave us this topic, I had to do some research on stuff because I had to look up and find out, like, okay, I don't read a whole lot, and vampires are not one of my most read topics. So I did a Google search for worst vampire books and found this, there's a website, Goodreads. I'm sure anyone who reads novels has heard of the website Goodreads. It's for rating books and all kinds of stuff. They have a list of worst vampire books ever. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the top 4 books are in their worst vampire books ever? This is voted on by the public.
I'm sure it's Twilight.
They are all Twilight books. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
But they're wrong. They're the worst fairy
wrong.
They're the worst fairy books. I'm gonna write to the website right now and let them know they need to change that to.
Yeah, put a link to this on there so they know.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll do that.
So we argued there, and now here's where we're going to argue the second time. I had to laugh at your favorite there, Morph, because my least favorite is Morbius. Damn him. He's a scientist. He's a scientist that has a blood problem. And so what does he do? He takes vampire bat blood and goes, well, I'm going to make this concoction out of it. And what does it do? It makes him crave blood, be able to fly, be photosensitive to light.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Do vampire bats have any of that?
Nope.
I mean, other than flying, but they have wings. So it's like, none of that makes sense. I hated his little pig bat nose.
Oh, come on. That was great.
Oh, no. And I'm going to tell you this. So I brought up the Blade thing specifically, right? He's the reason Blade became a vampire. His bite only sometimes turns people. It's like the worst superpower next, like the most unpredictable superpower next to like Spidey sense.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing the fact that that his origin story is ridiculous. His the way he is written is awful. I'm not arguing that. I find him entertaining.
Oh no!
I didn't say he was great. I said he's entertaining.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's your choice to do that as your favorite. But I was like, oh my god, I can't. I hated those. I hated those ones. And then as a kid, I remember he showed up on one of the cartoons.
Oh yeah.
He had the most annoying voice.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
I saw that cartoon and I was like, I imagine this is how he actually talks. He's that annoying.
Yep.
So, I couldn't. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
I'm all for it.
I did almost go Blade for my favorite of the comic or the written genre, because he's had some good storylines. So
yeah, he has, and you know so we've all gone with our bad comics and novels and our written medium. You know, should we go right into TV and movies?
Do you want to do that one, or do you want to leave games next? Which one do you want to finish with?
Well, I say we transition right into movies, and I'll go first because my favorite is Blade.
Oh.
That first Blade movie, amazing. That movie was top-notch, and not only was that movie top-notch, in my opinion, that movie is what sparked Marvel and allowed or gave Marvel the idea that they could turn some of their other properties into money-making movies. And you can thank Blade for the Avengers, for Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, every movie that Marvel makes from here on out. That's because Blade was successful. And
I was going to say that same, like, I originally thought about that one. I was like, man, Blade's, because honestly, until Blade, superhero movies were kind of a joke.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was some stuff out there, but Blade really made you, and Wesley Snipes was Blade.
Yeah.
I mean, he just had the whole look, and you're like, this dude's badass, and it proved vampires sparkle right before they die.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Tie him up and leave him out on the point of
right.
Like, as the sun's coming up over the ocean. Boom! I like it.
Or he throws the blade, and as it's cutting him, you see the shing shing.
Yep.
Little sparkle right before they.
Exactly. Now we have to put the caveat out there. The first Blade movie was really good. Second Blade movie was not good. Third Blade movie, I would say, is okay.
It was okay.
It's a good comedy.
Yes.
Yep. And honestly, I'd say the third Blade movie actually makes you believe Ryan Reynolds could be Deadpool.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Good point. Yes.
Like he's going into all this stuff like, I'm going to die, but I'm going to crack a couple jokes while I do it.
Yeah. Because of that movie, I've always wanted to go to an event with a name tag that says, "Hello, my name is fuck you."
Nope. Nice.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Well, if you were trying to keep this PG-13, I'm sorry.
I was not. I had no one way or the other.
So what other movies do we got out there?
What do you got, Kip?
I've got a Swedish movie called Let the Right One In. It came out in 2008. It's based on the book by John Lindquist, which was my number 2 book if we would have gotten that far on the list.
Okay.
And it takes place around this 12-year-old boy named Oscar, who is bullied in school. He's very quiet. Single parent. He's raised by his mom, single parent, and he just lives this lonely existence. And then this
little girl moves in, right?
These weird neighbors move in with this little girl who happens to be a vampire. And to me, it kind of shows you the solidarity of being a vampire, especially if you were turned at a very young age. And it's a little bit more of a melancholy kind of a movie, but I think as far as here's a 12-year-old little girl who looks very innocent, who could rip you a new one if she wanted to. It just has that whole vibe of it just sucks to be a vampire. I mean, you know, she is reliant on an adult, so it's called Let the Right One In, basically because she has to replace her handler, and it ends up, you know, Oscar is like really being tried out, and he doesn't even know it. And I think it's just an interesting twist on being a vampire.
So she's a vampire, but the people with her aren't.
No, she's with a guy when the movie first starts. Looks like he's mid to late 40s.
Okay.
Looks like a total pedophile.
Oh, I bet he is.
And he basically hunts for her. He goes out and captures people, strings them up on a tree, drains their blood, and then brings it back to her for her to drink.
Weird.
Yeah, it's subtitled, so you have to read. Sorry about that, but it's fantastic.
Nice. I've heard about. God, I heard about that somewhere else. I don't know where I heard about it.
It's available on Amazon Instant Video.
It used to be on Netflix, but I think they took it off.
One of the other podcasts I listened to, I think, reviewed it at one point and brought it up.
I've mentioned it before on Geekfecta. Maybe you've heard it. Yeah, and they did an American version called Let Me In with Chloe Moritz as the vampire.
Was it good?
It actually was good. I was surprised. I was totally like, America always fucks this up, but they did a good job.
That's good.
Sorry, I used the F-bomb again.
So now we caveated this with our favorite, not the best necessarily out there. So
Right.
I'm going to throw it out. My favorite vampire movie probably of all times is The Lost Boys. Like,
oh, yeah.
the nostalgia factor on it for me, like, even, like, you know, I watched it probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, and watching it, I was like, man, Kiefer Sutherland's a badass. And the Frog Boys are just hilarious. The Frog Brothers, like, the whole, like, man, when you take a vampire out, no matter how you take it out, it's might go screaming, it might explode, but it's going to try to take you with it. And, so they run down, they have all this traps set up for all these guys, and they didn't make the vampires seem like they were wussy necessarily, you know, and the kids have to figure out how to kill them. And then at the end, when the grandpa comes in and stakes the last one, he's like, man, only problem with living around here is the damn vampires.
Yeah, and they put the twist on it that makes it look like being a vampire is a hell of a lot of fun.
Right, yeah. Right, like, hey, just join us and we'll hang out and it'll be awesome. But, I mean, I saw it as a kid, and it just kind of stuck with me, and now whenever it's like on somewhere, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So
that's an interesting choice. I like it.
Was.
Yeah.
So, how about our least favorite movie or TV? Are you gonna stick with Twilight throughout the whole thing there? Kip?
Hey, I stand my ground. Twilight was horrible. You know what? I'll throw another one out there. And it may be very unpopular, but I did not like Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just annoyed the hell out of me.
Question: had you read the books?
I had not. Maybe that would have helped. I don't know.
Well, it makes it, I think, almost less watchable.
Oh, really?
I think so. Lestat in the books is a badass. Like, you start going, wow, because, like, in the first book, it is like the movie. It's all from Louis' point of view. And then the second book, The Vampire Lestat, is from Lestat's point of view, and he's like, that dude, no, he's got it all wrong. The third book is like modern day, and he's a rock star, and he pretends to be a vampire. Like, he goes out on stage and like, yeah, I'm gonna, party and drink blood, and he lives the rock star life, so he's always out at night. So
Yeah.
thinks like, oh, he's asleep during the day. Well, he's a rock star. So I don't know. The books are pretty good. The movie, yeah, I don't know.
I was not a fan.
Nah. Although it does have a creepy little vampire girl. So
Yeah, I'm still not a fan of her today. So
Morph, how about you?
Well, I at least can say that the Twilight movies, I can at least say that because I've seen one of them. I was forced to sit in the movie theater.
Oh, man, ouch.
The last Twilight movie, and yes, that was excruciatingly painful. So much so that my wife actually apologized to me when it was over because she's like, I didn't realize it was going to be that bad.
Oh, ouch.
And she likes the books. So,
Yeah.
But no, the one that I would actually put up there as just as bad as Twilight, and it is a TV show on the CW called Vampire Diaries.
Oh yeah.
I have watched a good portion of these due to the agreement that my wife and I had at one point, in that any show that we recorded, we were watching together.
Oh.
And she wanted, I can't remember which kid it was that she ended up watching the first few seasons of it, getting caught up on Netflix while she was on maternity leave. And so then she started recording that TV show, and so she would sit and watch through some of the bad stuff that I wanted to watch. So I had to sit through this bad stuff she wanted to watch. That movie or that TV show is painful to watch.
It's Twilight with commercials. That's all that is.
It's worse than that. I mean, at least Twilight was short.
That should be on their movie poster. Hey, at least we're short.
Vampire Diaries.
Not as long as most movies.
Vampire Diaries has been going on for 11 seasons.
Are you serious?
They have a spin-off now of Vampire Diaries. This is extremely popular, and I would
Eternal?
be scared.
Is that what it is?
Immortal.
Originals.
Yeah, and it's both of those shows are perfect CW shows, or they're the stereotypical, is what I was looking for, CW shows, in that they are shows that are just used to push out pretty people.
Right.
All the vampires are pretty, whether they're male or female, and all it is another excuse to see them only partially clothed. So,
and that's the biggest problem I have with it. They're partially closed.
Gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's a CW, so it's not a full cable channel,
Right.
so they can't go full frontal nudity.
Yep. So I don't know how popular my last one will be, my least favorite, but my least favorite, and there's a big story that goes with this, is From Dusk Till Dawn. I cannot stand this movie. And the worst part about it was, when my wife and I met in college, we decided to go on our first date to the movies. And we get there, and she goes, "Oh, what do you want to see?" I was like, "I don't care. I'll see anything. Literally, I will see, anything. It doesn't bother." At that point, I'm going out with a girl. If she said, "I want to see Twilight," I'd have been like, "Okay, sure, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I can sit through anything awful for a little bit." And she's like, "Well, no. Have you heard about any of these?" And literally, I mean, this is, middle of college. I got tests going on, all this stuff, right? And I look up there, and I was like, God, I don't know anything out. And then I was like, well, my friends went and saw From Dusk Till Dawn. It's a vampire movie. I don't know. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. It ended, and I went, I'm sorry. I apologize. That was awful. She's like, oh my god, it really was. I was hoping you didn't like it. I was like, no. And so then I was like, so do you want to go get something to eat? And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, dang it. Are you kidding me? This movie killed me. So she went back to her. I drop her off at her dorm. I go back to where I live. And I guess she went upstairs and was like, oh, we saw this awful movie. And I'm like, well, yeah, and then what? He's like, well, then he asked me to get something to eat. And I said no because I wasn't really hungry. And they're like, oh, you saw a horrible movie, and then you said, no, he's going to think you don't ever want to see him again. And I was like, mind going, she's never going to want to see me again. But besides that, I mean, this vampire, okay, so George Clooney and Tarantino are criminals, and they get in an RV, and they end up at this bar in the middle of nowhere with a nest of vampires who presumably have been doing this for years. They move into a strip club, and then when everything gets all like going, they turn and eat everybody.
Yep.
But in this one, at the start of it, they turn to eat everyone. Half of them get killed right away. Like, you've been doing this for years, and you can't set a trap? You're vampires. And there's a nest of you. And these people aren't expecting it. So they start going after them. Literally, what's his name? The older guy. I can't remember the actor's name. But he stabs one and goes, wow, they seem soft in the chest. Go for there. Like, what?
He's never seen a girl before.
Your heart is where you stab through the vampire, and they're softer there? What a horrible predatory trait. My weakest spot is right in front, and it's soft. And then at one point they hold him off. They have a shotgun and a stick from a leg from a chair, and they put it up in the form of a cross. And that's enough to make him go, oh, we can't look at it. It's not a cross, it's a shotgun and a stick. You're a vampire. Like, come on. So, oh my God. And you know, the worst part of that movie is as they're pulling up there, Cheech Marin's out front. Have you guys seen the movie?
Yes.
And he's like, we got this pussy, we got that pussy. And I'm on a date, and I, like, look over like, oh, shit, this isn't going to go well.
Now, you have
Best
to
first
give...
date ever.
You have to give this movie at least some credit, because this movie brought together actors like Clooney, Tarantino, Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, Selma Hayek, Cheech Marin, Danny Trejo. The list goes on and on. Kelly
and there's
Preston.
a character whose credit name is Sex Machine. So
yes.
That's Trejo, right?
No, that's Tom Savini.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Trejo was what? Razor something?
Razor Charlie.
Razor Charlie.
We could agree that it brought together a lot of big names, but I would argue so did like Valentine's Day.
Yep.
So did New Year's Eve.
Doesn't make anything any good. Yep.
No. It was like, hey guys, come into this. Is it directed by Rodriguez? Is that who it's directed by?
Yes, Robert Rodriguez.
And so he's like, hey, Quentin, I need you to come over here and bring some people with you. And Quentin was like, yeah, I'll come do it with you.
Yeah, it was written. The screenplay was written by Tarantino.
Oh, and it obviously.
And Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, they work hand in hand on a lot.
Yeah, they share the same brain.
Big names because he was still, popular off of Pulp Fiction or whatever, or whatever his last one was.
Now the story was written by Robert Kurtzman, and it's really bad when you look up his IMDb profile, and it actually says that's one of the movies that he's credited for. Things like Army of Darkness, Austin Powers in Goldmember, and From Dusk Till Dawn.
Right.
Yeah. Dude, you should probably just hang it up.
Right. Right. Now, Army of Darkness is a campy fun.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And I think it was supposed to be. I'm not, and maybe that's what they were going for From Dusk Till Dawn, but man, it just wasn't.
And here's the thing. if you're a Tarantino fan, fine. The only thing I really liked that he ever did was Reservoir Dogs, and True Romance. Those are like the only. I'm not a Pulp Fiction fan, but his acting is awful, man.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's terrible.
and I'm not a huge fan of Juliette Lewis's acting either. So,
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, about the only good thing to come out of this movie is you get to see Selma Hayek pretty much naked.
Yeah.
So, other than
Almost.
yeah, almost. Other
That
than
movie is a bad prom date. You think these things are going to happen, and none of them do.
right, I just still can't get over like this is their big trap, and a bunch of them die. Like you're bad. Like Blade could have killed everyone in that place by himself.
You didn't have like enough time to plan this. You guys don't die.
Right. Right.
Like
hey,
you're
I got this plan. We're gonna pretend we're strippers. And we're gonna lock these guys in. And then when they're all hot and heavy and they're reaching for their ones, we're gonna be like, you go first, like you jump on someone and start eating them. Then you jump on someone and start eating them. So that like by the fourth or fifth person they're like, whoa, wait, what's happening? And they can stab us. Instead of like a red light comes on and everyone just kills.
Yeah. Okay, so here we're going to expand on this just a little bit because did you know that there's a TV show that they've made now from Dusk Till Dawn?
I have heard.
It's got one season down. Actually, 2 seasons, I think. Yeah.
I think there's
got 2 seasons.
They're on the 2nd season right now.
There was another movie too, right?
Oh, there was like 3 movies.
3 of them.
And the funny part is, out behind this bar, at one point, is this giant ziggurat pyramid that nobody notices.
Yeah.
What? So yeah, it's a sticking point with my wife that if she stayed with me through that, I pretty much she'll stay through everything.
Yeah. She should. Jesus.
The worst is out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, let's move on over now that we've killed that, and someone's probably going to be like, "That's my favorite movie."
I'm sorry.
They have bad taste.
Yeah.
Send
Go
hate
find
mail
a
to
better
Bill.
movie.
Right, send email to Bill. Actually, send an email to John Harris. So next up, the last category we have is games, the video game or board games, whatever we decide. I think you guys may be surprised with mine, but I'd love to hear yours.
I guess you're saving the best for last then, huh?
No, I can go first. That's not a problem. So for me, I actually went video game with my favorite instead of board game. Because looking at the board games, I mean I've played some, but there's nothing I played a lot. So I went again, kind of almost that nostalgic. And the thing that I put hours upon hours in when I was a kid was Castlevania.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
End of the game to kill Dracula. Like to this day, I think every vampire hunter should have a whip. It's pointless. It doesn't help you, but you should have one. So,
but you can knock those lights down with them.
Right, exactly. And later on, it became a flaming whip in some of them, and a horn whip, and but man, I put hours into Castlevania, and it was kind of, early on you had a lot of games like Mario where you're jumping around and stuff, and Metroid and Castlevania kind of came up like, look, there's a story, and you're like, whoa, wait, what? There's a story? And you're going through to try to get Dracula, and then that story spans like numerous games. So it was crazy. It was fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one because that's the one I put at the top of my list. I don't have a whole lot of vampire video games to back myself on. That was pretty much the top of the charts right there. There really wasn't. I went through the list. I went through and did a Google search for every vampire video game out there. And I'm looking through this list going, I have never heard of these things. So yeah, that really is the best. That's one of my top classic video games, period. And so, yeah, it's definitely got to fit in this.
Well, and like the second one was like the first one where you could like you had like an inventory and you could equip stuff
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And it was like again that was like a new like that shows my age. That was a new thing where you're like, oh, you can equip something? Wait, what? I have equipment? I don't just like it's not just a guy that just jumps and has what he has. So for me, I mean, it was I don't know, it was mind blowing. It was fun. Like you, I kind of searched through some of the video games, and I was looking for the worst ones, and like all the worst ones, I was like, I've never played that, never heard of that. I don't know what that is. So,
That's how bad it was.
but for the favorite, like instantly when I was like board game or video game, I was like, and me, Prolific Games is a board game company, so I was like, what board game? Went to Board Game Geek, typed in, I was like, I got nothing. I was like, what video game? I was like, Castlevania. Like, I didn't even have to look that one up. It was just like, so I went with it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. And even some of the new ones, like I've played some of the demos because I'm a cheapskate now and don't buy video games. And I've played some of the demos of the newest ones, and they're they don't provide the same kind of thrill that I have from playing the original, but they still kind of give you that fun vampire hunting type atmosphere. So it's definitely tops on my list.
Right. Kip.
All right. Well, mine is Monopoly with the Twilight themes pasted on. No, just kidding. It's Fury of Dracula. It's a board game. I have the Fantasy Flight Edition from 2005,
Okay.
which I guess now is really freaking hard to find. When I did a search for it just for the hell of it, Amazon had it for $296. So maybe I should sell my copy. I don't know. Anyway, it's
Not
a 2 to
until
5
I've
player.
played it.
You got to get over and play more. It's a 2 to 5 player game. One person plays Dracula, and then the other 4 play characters from Bram Stoker's novel. Lord Godalming, Dr. Seward, Van Helsing, Mina Harker. And if you have less than 4 people to play those parts, then somebody has to play more than one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the character who's Dracula has a hidden track, and he moves around the board, and everybody tries to find him. And there's, you can leave traps for the players looking for Dracula, and you can bite some of the vampire hunters and things like that. It's just a good cat and mouse game. I really like it. It does take about 3 hours to play, which is a downside with a lot of my gaming group. If it takes more than 10 minutes to play, they seem to we struggle. Probably because I never get the rules exactly right. But but that is my favorite. In fact, it was my first ever board game of this size that I purchased. I guess my first hobby board game I ever purchased.
It's an old game. Like it's been around for a
Since
long
the 80s.
Yeah. Like I first played it in college. Someone had a copy, so that would have been around 93, 94. And I mean it's fun. You definitely feel like you also definitely feel like when you're playing the characters, when you're playing like the hunters, you feel like Dracula has all the power.
Yes.
Like, you're like, oh my god, you can do everything, we can't do anything. However, when you're playing Dracula, you also kind of feel like, oh my god, they're closing in, I can't do anything. Whichever side you're playing, you feel like the other side has the advantage.
And every time you're in the perfect position to attack somebody, it's daylight and you're weakened.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a good game. So for my least favorite game, I was going to go with Twilight Trivia because I have played it, and it is brutal because you can either answer questions or do hideously stupid, like almost a truth or dare type thing. And so I can't answer any questions about it.
Who is this person? Don't care.
Well, when they were like, who are the two people that asked Bella to the prom? I was like, oh, I know this. It's got to be Edward and Jacob, right? And she's like, no, they were two other boys. They didn't ask her to prom. They weren't part of that. I'm like, aren't they the two main people? Well, no, these are other guys. These were like normal humans. How many people wanted this chick?
She's a slut, man.
I have never seen the full movie, but I have walked through all my wife's watching it, and the acting is just open mouth, stare.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many people want? I think she might be mentally challenged.
I think she'd be in your class.
Like it easy. But going back to my earlier, that I don't consider them vampires. I am going to go with one that people are going to be like, what? How could you do that? But there's a caveat with it. So my least favorite is Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game. It's a good game. The system is fine. However, it's part of a big universe. Okay, so there's Vampire the Masquerade, there's Werewolf, there's Mage, there's Wraith, there's Mummy, whatever, Changeling. When Vampire is played by itself, it's fine. When you add these other things in, it's awful. Because the way it works is, Vampire has all these abilities, but he has to spend blood to make his abilities go off, and it takes time to do this. So if a werewolf comes upon him, and werewolf's out, he just automatically wins. He's going to kill the vampire, because the vampire can't spend blood fast enough to do anything. Now, so you go, okay, well, I'll play a werewolf then, because they're better. A mage can do whatever the hell he wants, as long as there's not humans around, and he doesn't show his power to them. So if you're off into the woods, and you're a vampire or werewolf, like, oh, I'm going to take this mage out, the mage just goes, you're dead. And you're like, oh, well, that sucked. And then if you go really far into the system, there are mummies that can control weather. They're unstoppable. They can kill anything. So the problem was they're not balanced at all. The game that's like, well, you're going up against mages. You're like, we're fucked. I can't do anything. So I've had some good games of it. I've played just in the just Vampire. But if you do that, it really becomes the Anne Rice. Like you have different houses that you're all a part of, and it's more intrigue than it is Vampire. So, and really, what's the end goal of a vampire? Eat people? I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I tend to want to be the hero. So, and back when I was playing it in college and stuff, like because I played a lot of role playing games. That one never thrilled me because I want to be the hero, and there was no, like, hey, vampires get chicks and date them. Like, what? No, they don't. They eat them. So, it never really did anything for me. The system's fine. The game is fine. It just didn't work for me.
Fair enough.
Morph, you got a bad game? Or you said you didn't you?
Well, I do. I do have a bad game, and I didn't actually realize it until I started looking it up. There was a game that I played back in the day, back on Windows 95, called Gothus. And I didn't realize it until I looked up this game, because, I mean, I played this freaking long time ago. And it was it was one of those first, it was kind of right in there with, what was it, not Dragon Quest, King's Quest. So, except this was a first-person perspective, so it kind of fit with the Doom or Duke Nukem type game, except it was a quest game like King's Quest, and the idea was that you were a newly created vampire and you had to go find these scrolls and bring them back before somebody else got to them. And when I looked up more about this game so that I could actually be able to talk about it here, this game is actually, it says that it borrows heavily from the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop role-playing game. So, but this game, I mean, well, first of all, it came out in, the late 90s. Graphics, and I mean, the fact that it ran on a Windows 95 operating system just kind of tells you right there. Terrible graphics, just awful, like, they didn't know how to program games back then. So it was really, I mean, the game, maybe if somebody remade it now, maybe it wouldn't be so terrible, but it was just, it was one of those games that I had gotten and I had, and I believe, if I remember right, I had it on the floppy drive, and so you had to put multiple disk drives in there because it didn't run on a CD player or on a CD-ROM, and so it was just not good.
Take disc out, flip it over.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, you have reached the end of this part. Put in disc 2.
Oh.
Yeah, not
Just
good.
killed the mood.
It
Right.
did. Ruined it.
That is brutal.
So what do you got, Kev? What's your least favorite?
Well, you guys gave some really good reasons why you hated what you hated. Mine's pretty flimsy. It's a game called Bloodsuckers. It's by the people who created the game Castle Panic, which I like.
Mm.
And I played it at Gen Con a few years back. I think the year it came out was hell, when was I there? 2011. And the person teaching the game, the representative for the game company, keep this in mind, Bill, I don't think knew how to play the game.
Oh. No.
And she explained, and we played the entire game, and I walked away, and I looked at my friend and go, do you know how to play this game? He's like, no. Do you know what we just did? He's like, no. It's like, I'm never playing this game again. It may be fun, but I'll never find out. It was such a horrible experience. It's like,
no.
not doing it.
That's not good.
No. So it has nothing to do with the game, and more that they hired somebody or volunteered somebody to run this game at Gen Con. They didn't know how to play it.
That's a totally different podcast. I could tell you some bad rant.
Well, and that's kind of sad because looking at this game on Board Game Geek, it sounds like it might be kind of fun. It's a
yeah, and it's actually rated halfway decent.
Strategy card game. I mean, I kind of like those. I kind of want a 4-player game that focus on team-based gameplay. I kind of like that idea.
Well, when you sit down to play a game and the person's just like, well, do this, now do that. And you're like, why? Well, just do this. No, I think we're going to go do something else.
Yeah.
What are those prolific game guys? We'll just go hang out with them. Even if they don't know what they're doing, at least they're fun.
We know what you're doing every time. It's funny because, not to get too far off our track here, but talking about the just people not running their literally, we have a friend who goes to a lot of these conventions, and he was walked up to a table, and it was kind of in the off towards like the indie people before the indie stuff really started getting big, and he's like, I'm gonna throw this guy a bone. He's sitting here. No one's talking to him. He's got an RPG. Oh, I love RPGs. It might be cheap. I'm just gonna ask him what it's about. He walked up and he goes, so tell me about it. Now this is someone walking up to you and just saying, hey, tell me about what you're trying to sell me. And the guy looks up and he goes, do you like math? And he's like, what? He's like, do you like math? Not really. You won't want this game. What?
Salesman of the year.
Right? So,
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not always people they hire. Sometimes it's just them.
Yeah.
Well, I think we hit our favorites. We hit our least favorites on vampires. That's gonna pretty much wrap up the first episode. I'm willing to come back in a couple weeks if you guys are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What topic does anyone want to try for next time?
Well, do we want to get completely away from monsters and I don't know.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I've thought of everything from zombies to fairies to just post-apocalyptic. Whatever you guys want to decide, we can hit it.
Morph?
Oh, I'm compiling lists in my head.
You're gonna view everything as lists now.
And I'm trying to think of I'm trying to figure out which list would be best.
Which one would be right?
I'm kind of leaning toward. I think doing zombies might be good, or of that.
That works for me. The Walking Dead will reign next time. I'm good with zombies. I know we'll probably hear some Marvel zombies, but that'll be for next time then. Thanks for doing this with me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us on. It was fun.
Definitely. And that's it.